Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar entitled Unlocking Revenue Growth. This session is all about conversion rate optimization. Today in the call, we're going to be talking about the value of experimentation and optimizing your landing pages and everything in between. So we've got a lot to cover in the session today. And running the session for us is the managing director of our Daydot business. Daydot is all about conversion rate optimization. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Osh Rice. Osh, over to you.
Brilliant, thank you, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So we're going to be taking you through really quick about ourselves. There's always got to be an intro. What we've really been focusing on is experimentation, conversion rate optimization, and on how to start unlocking growth by making better decisions. And for each of the things, I'm going to hopefully give you some really actionable insight, stuff that you can take away today and start using from this afternoon. There will be a quiz. So great. In terms of ourselves, we're Daydot. We look at optimizing every element and component part of your website and of your journey to look at driving digital transformation. And we've generated over £25 million in incremental revenue for our clients over the last 5 years. We've had a huge amount of success working with clients such as Wall Street Journal, McAfee, RSPB, to name but a few. But it's really what we're focused on is getting really measurable, high-impact results for our clients across user experience and ultimately putting the customer at the heart of your journeys. We focus on conversion rate optimization, user testing, conversion-centered design, and UX research. Again, all of this without sacrificing your design and your brand look and feel. So enough about us. Let's talk about you. So we're going to be talking today about a couple of things, but let's start out with some facts that you may or may not be aware of. So you're not your user. We as marketers, we're not users. What does this mean? It means that studies have shown that 70% of website changes made without testing actually hurt conversion rates. And this means that well-intentioned updates and changes can backfire, leading to lower revenue and higher acquisition costs. That's actually really optimistic. So Optimizely, who are a leading A/B testing and experimentation platform, they recently run the numbers on over 130,000 website and app changes and found that on average, only 12% of changes made a positive impact to their clients' businesses. So what do we do about this? If it's happening everywhere, the old way was big bets based on opinions. Well, I think this, or the CEO's daughter thinks we should be doing this. The new way is continuous compound optimization. And the three key reasons that you'd look to be investing in experimentation is higher return on investment per visitor, so micro improvements unlocking compound conversion growth, risk reduction, so you can test something before committing. You're not spending a huge amount of design and dev and then regretting it because you made the wrong choices. And also it's a cultural unlock. Teams aligned around testing move faster and stay agile. It's a growth engine, so it's not just a tactic. Some of the biggest brands around that scale, they experiment relentlessly. So the fastest growing D2C brands are better at storytelling, personalization, and checkout design, but also they test more, they learn faster, and they adapt quicker. So today I'm going to walk you through some actionable ways that you can embrace experimentation to drive some measurable, repeatable business growth. And we're going to kick off with your customers. So customer expectations have shifted. Your customers are no longer comparing you to your competitors. They're comparing you to best-in-class intuitive user experiences. So shoppers demand, next slide please, Gabby. And one more. Great, thank you. Shoppers demand speed, relevance, values alignment. Brands that are slow to respond, poorly personalized, or tone deaf are getting ghosted. So your customers are not the same as they were even 2 years ago. They base their expectations not on your competitors, but on best-in-class digital experiences. So it's not what you sell, it's how you let a user buy it. So adding stuff like barriers, adding barriers like unclear returns policies, subpar search, or forced registration can really detract from your user experience and present barriers to conversion, especially for first-time visitors. Klarna are doing a great job of this, of removing barriers to conversion with stuff like three-click checkout, adding native shopping, and a no word login for first time users. Whereas first time users on a lot of other sites, this process can take as many as 8 steps and kind of 5 minutes. So what's happening here is Klarna's model is quickly becoming the default expectation that your customers are benchmarking you against. We all know about skip the intro. What's really fascinating about this is in the first month, this saved users 136 years of time. Now, users expect to start skipping the fluff at all times and get straight to where they want to go. So you've got slow landing hero, forget about it. Unclear calls to action, you're already behind. So here's a few things that we can start to try. So look at, how can you skip the fluff on your homepage option? So we've run experiments where raising the visibility of popular items and bestsellers creates a shortcut for users, and that's resulted in 15% growth in conversions. You could look at testing out a no login checkout. Testing out guest checkout like this can be done through painted door test to gauge interest before investing in development tasks. And we've seen clear highlighting of returns, cancellation, and shipping FAQs throughout the early journey can push order completes by over 18%. And lastly, always on customer insights. This this is the real competitive advantage that every business should be looking at. And this is speaking to your own customers. They know what's good about your product, what's bad, what frustrates them about your online experience better than anyone in my business and anyone in your business. So look at maybe setting up pop-up surveys to start to uncover why users are coming, why they're not converting, what their frustrations are. And this can start to give you real insights into what's going on with your customers, but also what are those trends that are coming down the road that you're not aware of and you can start to get in front of. So next up, it's about consistency. So I'm going to tell you about the story. I really like this jacket. Apparently it's something called a shacket, which is a cross between a jacket and a shacket. So I was doom scrolling and I got served an ad for this jacket, and I thought, oh, okay, that's great. But when I clicked on it, it sent me through to a really generic landing page that didn't even have the shacket that I was looking for. So I was infuriated to get then retargeted, obviously, with 1,000 ads over and over again. And what this kind of tells me is that this happens more and more. We've all clicked on ads before when you land on a landing page and it feels completely disconnected from what was promised, whether it's a different offer, mismatched imagery, next slide please, Gabby, or irrelevant messaging. When expectations aren't met, it creates a frustrating experience. So symmetrical messaging helps to solve this by ensuring that the value proposition, images, and offers from your marketing campaign are directly reflected in the on-site experience. So if a user clicks on an ad showcasing a 65% discount on running shoes with an image of athletes in motion, the landing page should continue that exact message. It should highlight the 65% off sale, feature familiar images of athletes or action shots, and stay consistent with the ad's tone of voice. And this kind of makes the transition to your campaign, from your campaign to your site, feel really seamless and reassures users that they've landed in the right place. When users feel the experience is personalized and consistent, they're more likely to engage and complete the desired outcome, whether that's a sale, whether that's a lead. So what can you do about this? There's a couple of things really. So one, be looking at run an ad to landing page audit. So last year, a client of ours run one of these, and they increased return on ad spend by 27%. by aligning product-specific ads with exact product pages rather than categories. But you can also go one stage further. So look at maintaining consistency of message and promotion across your landing pages. If you're using particular keywords, if you're using particular promotions, phraseology or imagery, let's make that consistent across that experience. So when they're landing on a page, it's not completely remote from the ad that they've clicked on, the experiences they've seen of your site, which has been wonderfully created. And lastly, keeping those promotions clearly visible. There's nothing worse than saying, "Oh, do you know what? That's a great offer. I'm gonna pull the trigger," and you get there and it's never mentioned again. And as a product team, we're like, "Well, it's in the cart. Like, don't worry about it." But for a user, you need to see that consistency throughout that journey, and it stops users abandoning and going to find what they're looking for elsewhere. Could be a competitor site. Thank you. So the next section, we're going to look at product pages that actually sell. So your product page is the centerpiece of your user's e-commerce experience. Yet at the same time, the product page layout and features tend to be under a lot of strain, as they often rely on the same template reused across the site's entire product catalog. And so if your product page doesn't sell, nothing else will, right? So product pages are where it happens, like the decision, the hesitation, the purchase, and most of them are a bit rubbish, quite frankly. You wouldn't build a standalone landing page with a single photo, no real description, and a buy now button. So why would you do that for your product pages? It doesn't really make any sense. So you need to start thinking like a magazine editor. Use rich imagery. These days, a lot of users incorporate social media content into their product research in one way or another. Yet still so many sites fail to offer any social media images, user-generated content, or videos from past buyers. And that leaves users without the information they need to confidently proceed with their purchase. So in particular, users get a lot of information from images provided by past buyers, especially when they're seeking out information that previous customers are uniquely qualified to offer and can't be anticipated by the site. So when product pages don't offer enough visual information from past customers, users start to go around the site to look for other visual social proof, and they're potentially stumbling across competitor sites in the process of that. We recently did something with Hearst magazines where we just really increased the relevancy and the sort of highlight and signposting of social proof within their product pages, and we saw a massive increase in ads to basket and subscription conversion rates just by having the right type of social proof and surfacing that at an appropriate time within that's above the fold, and it's within the section that the users are really concentrating on. The next thing really is around, I call this banana for scale, but really it's about 42% of users try to understand the size of a product through the product page image. And without that in-scale image, this becomes really difficult and inaccurate. So on the right here, GoPro are doing a really good job of providing that in-scale image, the camera, and it kind of illustrates its size in relation to the model's hands. In-scale images are critical for users to get a sense of relative size of products. But this works across the board. It's not just for sort of D2C. There's a huge amount of studies that show if you've got a piece of SaaS, whatever your product is, show someone using it, and that is more effective visual than anything else that you can provide. People love seeing products being used, and this goes for everything from SaaS to cameras in this case. Be really clear on delivery costs. So don't make users hunt around for total costs. While regular shoppers will understand that the delivery and return information is typically held in the checkout, that doesn't make it right. Plus, you're missing out on all the visitors who bounce because of that uncertainty. And a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is just removing uncertainty. It's stuff that kind of, it's almost, if you're making a user being forced to think, we're not doing our jobs properly. So be really clear on returns. Returns are the bane of our existence, particularly within the e-commerce sector. But testing around highlighting returns is a valuable source of incremental gains. Give buyers no opportunities to wonder if there are any hidden traps further along the funnel. Be really transparent about your returns, about your pricing, as we've just seen. Everything that you can give them, it's gonna be there. And then it's about, okay, how do we then start to test layout? How do we make that really perform and be effective? Because you're going to see that more consistent conversions off the back of that activity. Show specs and make them scannable. As a short arse, I've had to go really deep into specs for clothing to make sure I don't look like I'm wearing my dad's jumper. And it's really frustrating when, even when digging around, I can't find technical specs for a product. And you kind of need to make sure these are available for everything that you're selling. And once they're there, make them scannable. So there's an example that I found for from two laptop sellers, two laptop stores. So laptops have like an abundance of associated specs. But at Staples, these specs are not organised in any meaningful way. But on the right, B&H, they have a really robust specification sheet, and it's divided into sections beneath easily understandable subheadings. All you're doing is helping users hone in on exactly what they're looking for, and you're reducing the workload of your customers. So here's a couple of things that we can try. Try looking at testing rich imagery, video, and social proof. Give people more information, not less. So better descriptions that don't assume the user knows everything. Technical specs, FAQs, and for the love of conversion, get all your MVPs above the fold. Make sure that it's super clear what problem you're solving, why this should be the product people are purchasing. Get it all there. Make sure it's scannable, and start driving more conversions. Most users won't scroll, and you've only got one shot. So short, snappy, bulleting any key decision drivers. This is all kind of best practice, but sometimes we kind of forget and we get it. We kind of go into this verbose, incredible dialogues, but really it's keep everything as sharp as possible. So next up, you've done all that. Cool. What next? Don't ignore your checkout. So you spend all this time crafting your acquisition strategy, building audiences, designing ads, and nudging me towards add to cart or contact us, request a demo. But now what? You leave me to fend for myself in the most fragile moment of the journey. And that's not on. So there's a study recently by Baymard looking at why do visitors abandon the site, right? And so it's really interesting that at checkout page around 69% is kind of the benchmark. So you can benchmark that when you get home. But it also showed the most common reasons for customers abandoning. And that's like it's hidden costs that are introduced at the last minute, difficult or complicated processes, which often involve setting up an account, and a lack of trust in the website itself. We've talked about this, right? So these are not new things, but often there's not a real clear way to address that or prioritize that based on all the 500 other things that you need to change. So let's talk about shipping. So be open and transparent about pricing, reinforce value where appropriate. So incomprehensibly cumbersome shipping, it angers users, and it's often the direct cause of checkout abandonments. Users have got one main concern for delivery speed: when will I get my order? So this is kind of historically used within e-commerce, particularly. We clearly state the shipping speed for each of the shipping options. For example, standard is 2 business days. It's going to be $4.95. However, this is a really business-centric way of conveying that information. Displaying shipping speed 2 business days forces users to research, calculate, and ultimately use their brains, and sometimes even guess when they're likely to get their order. It not only makes it less transparent when the order will be received, but it also introduces a lot of choice complexity into the checkout process during the user's delivery selection, increasing that cognitive load. So instead, look at providing a delivery date or a date range, and this allows users to immediately understand when they're going to receive their order. So delivery on April 4th or deliverable April 4th to April 8th. Just giving a lot more clarity on delivery is super important, and it's such an easy win. We did something similar for the RSPB shop, which is a big non-profit e-commerce store. If you ever do big garden bird watch, this is where you need to get your bird seed from. But they had a real problem with delivery, both in terms of what we've just discussed about being specific over when deliveries would be made, but also at the high cost of delivery. So we did quite a lot of work with them, speaking to their customers to understand what their value proposition was, why people are buying from them, and why actually the high cost is okay. We helped them to articulate that into the product pages, into the conversion flows, And as a result of that, we saw a 3% increase in conversion rate and over a 12% drop off at that checkout stage because of the high delivery costs. Keep it simple. If making a purchase on your website was so simple a child could do it, you're doing something right. A great example of this is the way in-app purchases are designed. So, do you remember Amazon was forced to pay, I think it was like almost $70 million to parents because they'd made something which was so simple, those in-app purchases for games, that a child could literally do it. We've talked about guest checkouts already, and this offers a great way to shortcut first-time purchase abandons by giving users what they want rather than what we want, which is that juicy marketing data. We've got to earn that, right? So always give examples of what you're looking for. Be that sort of phone numbers, credit card numbers, formats, postcode. Be relentlessly testing any forms that you have on your site. Do you need this field? Okay, what errors are we getting? Where are people abandoning? How can we start to optimize that? There's a whole field of kind of experimentation that focuses purely on form fields and getting more from them. Great. Trust reinforcement is a really big one. We kind of feel that, well, our brand, we've done a really great job. We've got maybe we've got the Visa and MasterCard, maybe Amex logos on there. If you're really swish, you've got Apple Pay, Google Pay, but providing visual cues is a really effective way of increasing the kind of perceived level of security and robustness of your site. So adding stuff like site seals can be really important. Even something as small like having a little padlock next to credit card. Like it's a micro thing, you don't even notice it, but the brain does. So subconsciously, it's adding and reinforcing to the trust, and that's especially important if a user's coming to your site for the first time. Great. So a couple of things to try here. There's lots of different ways to skin a cat. Validate different ways of breaking down pricing, delivery, and other costs. So make sure shipping visibility and clarity is on point. As in tests that we've run, this typically sees a massive boost to conversions. Add security and trust reinforcement measures to your checkout. You can even add social proof from user-generated content, which can prevent user anxiety. Make sure that a specific discount or price is being pulled through. We've talked about this before. Got to keep at it. So make sure that all that good stuff is being pulled through with your ads into your landing page and into the checkout. It's obvious, but it can ruin so much of your good work. And try testing. Test one checkout element monthly. Whether that's button color, order summary, return details, guest checkout visibility. A lot of these small tweaks can equal really, really big wins. So next one up is stop guessing and start testing. So we obsess about media efficiency and we pay more and more for every click than we ever have before. But when it comes to our actual website experience, the thing those eyeballs are landing on, we kind of wing it. And to me, that's nuts. What you want to be looking at is, so this is going to be a video from Duolingo, which I'm hoping the sound works for. Let's give it a go. Maybe not. There we go. Well, anyway, so this is the CEO of Duolingo. Do you guys use Duolingo? It's great. If you're learning Spanish, my wife's Spanish, and my Spanish is kind of improving through that. She won't agree to that, but I think it's true. What our friend here is saying is that they were they were just making a lot of decisions, and they decided to test one of them with some of their audiences. I think this was their logo, and they were like, "Look, let's test something. We think it's going to be this." They had kind of 4 decisions, and 75% of them got it wrong. And what that showed to them was that it's really, really important to test everything that they do. So at Duolingo, they don't make any changes without A/B testing it with real customers. And that's really, really important. So you should be embracing data and avoiding assumptions. Start by running detailed research on your current funnel performance. Where are the biggest drop-offs that are happening? Is it a checkout? Maybe it's during sign up. Identify where users are leaving, and that helps you pinpoint where what needs to be fixed first. So next, get a deeper understanding of your users. This isn't about assuming their needs, it's about uncovering their pain points. Are they confused by your process? Is there missing information? Are they getting frustrated at some point? These insights are going to be crucial. Once you've identified the problem areas, dig even deeper. Use tools like heat maps, session replays, and surveys to gather insights directly from your users. These tools show exactly how users are interacting with your site and where things may be going wrong. And you can use these to start to build ideas of what you can change. So okay, we've got this insight. We think this is happening. Let's define it. Let's ideate on it. Create something that we can literally test with real users and build it. Some of this stuff can be really small, and the impacts are huge. And that's the fun part, really. You get to design your improved experience, build it in an A/B testing platform, and launch it to real customers. So let's say users are struggling to complete checkout because they don't trust the process. Right? User research has confirmed this, so you decide to add trust badges and reassurance messaging. With A/B testing, you can measure exactly how much these changes help. So when users reach the page you're optimizing, they're split into two groups. 50% will see your original page, and the other 50 will see this improved version. And by analyzing their real interactions, journeys, and decisions, you start to gain a direct insight into what actually works. So instead of guessing, you're using live customer behavior to shape decisions, ensuring that every change that you make is backed by real world data and not assumptions. And you get to win fast and fail fast, right? So the result of this is that you get to make really informed business decisions and protect against failure. So let's assume that our previous assumption was right and authority icons were the missing nudge that your customers needed to drive checkout progression. Okay, so you'll see a 10% boost in checkout step progression and 5% increase in actual purchase. That's a huge improvement in user experience, and more importantly, a significant lift in your baseline. So for simplicity, let's say you've got 500 monthly visitors with 3% conversion rate. This 5% improvement alone could unlock an additional 750 sales every month. That's an extra 9,000 sales each year, just on this one product. And so now imagine you hadn't tested this change and users didn't like it. So the new authority icons weren't what they were looking for, making them less likely to convert. By A/B testing, you'd be able to spot that problem before you launch it to 100% of your customers, and you're not losing that revenue. So let's say that had a negative 2% impact. That would be possibly negative 3,600 sales a year that you'd be losing by using that kind of old world technique of, okay, we should be doing this. Let's try it. Let's put it on site and see what happens. By testing, you're able to validate that a lot faster. A/B testing, it's really important. It boosts conversions, revenue, and user satisfaction, and it prevents costly business mistakes. So for me, that's a win-win. When a test fails, you've avoided rolling out a change that could have cost you sales. Either way, you're making informed decisions backed by real user behavior and not guesswork. So this is kind of the cycle of what a lot of the businesses that are really seeing significant growth are starting to see. Decide on what you're focusing on, understand your users' needs and frustrations, generate ideas of what we should change, test those changes, analyze the results, and then put it straight back in there. Okay, what are the learnings? How can we start to iterate on that test? And every test and iteration that you run is an opportunity to improve user experience, boost conversions, and increase return on investment. So here's a couple of things to try. Organizations can sometimes be constipated by trying to make big leaps all in one go, and get overtaken by those that make continual incremental improvements. So start creating a hypothesis board. So we believe adding reviews above the fold will increase conversion. Test it, track it, and learn. You need to start ruthlessly prioritizing. So which ideas are backed by data and user insights? What is the expected impact of this test on the page? So we've got two tests that we're trying to compare. Which one should we start with? You look at, okay, which page has got the most traffic? If we saw a 3% uplift, would it move the needle more on here? but also which of these tests is aligned with our commercial objectives. What are we trying to change here this year that's going to make a real difference to those? Start running one A/B test a month. Even if it's small, then you can start to get comfortable with the process and measure the impact. And also avoid revenue loss. Every decision that you make, you're either growing or you're finding out what doesn't work, and you've de-risked a lot of those changes that you're making. And those changes may have a negative impact on your bottom line. So this is our last one. We're talking about getting personal. The future isn't broad, it's specific. So if I land on your site and you show me everything you've got, it's a lot to take in. And for many visitors, most of your product range is irrelevant, at least initially. So we've all become pretty sophisticated when it comes to automating personalization around products, up and cross-sell. But let's look at some of the ways to leverage personalization to drive higher initial sales volume. Start by asking the right questions. HIMSS do a really cool job of this with their initial questionnaire. It allows them to really hone in on exactly what a visitor is looking for, the problem they're trying to solve. So, okay, this guy wants a luxurious head of hair. This tells me a lot of information about what products I serve, how I onboard them, and what they might be interested in. So a quiz like this, or a degree of kind of choose your own adventure, can be really useful in better orientating which path to send a user down. What's more, it doesn't need to be massively complex. Start with an MVP and work from there. Build it, test it, refine it. We've done something similar for New York Mag, where they had a paywall popping up saying if you want to read more of the article, you've got to subscribe. And we thought, okay, well that's pretty generic. It doesn't really talk to me. So what we looked to do was adding in a little bit more personalization. So we pulled in, okay, what would happen if we pulled in the title of the piece that we're reading on, because that's ultimately why they came to our site. Let's add in the title. Let's add in a bit more value proposition. Maybe let's look at adding in authors. And as a result of doing that, we saw 9% growth in subscriptions and 15% increase in paywall clicks. But it didn't stop there. We then explored whether changing the style, the branding, and the USPs on the paywall and the subscription landing pages would impact users' likelihood to subscribe. So instead of using generic overarching New York Magazine brands and USPs, we matched the paywall and the USPs to the specific title of the magazine that users were reading when that paywall pops up. And we also enhanced subscription landing pages to incorporate users' preferred magazine styles and USPs. And this saw a 17% increase in subs. So it's just about having considered personalization. So sometimes that's not all about kind of up and cross sell. It's about, what do we know about you? How can we make you feel seen? And lastly, looking at dynamic landing pages, we talked about symmetrical messaging earlier. So here's a great way to personalize that experience by playing with copy, creative, and inbound keyword messaging, which drove users to click on your ad in the first place. We were doing this for a SaaS brand about 10 years ago, although admittedly, it's a bit easier to do today. And this helps orientate users and create kind of a seamless experience, meeting their expectations, and can easily result in significant growth in deep dive into your product, into your site, and into your and ultimately in sales. So here's a couple of things to try. Tailor the homepage, personalize your welcome email, build retargeting that doesn't feel like digital stalking, but like thoughtful curation. Start by earning trust in one category, then expand. The goal is to make customers feel known and not surveilled. So look at adding a short quiz or choose your own adventure to identify the specific problem the user has. Look at dynamic landing page blocks. So pulling in what was really successful and working from your ad copy. And test, start by testing you versus everyone else copy. So how does what degree of personalization is working? What are we personalizing and why? And test everything. Once you start to see what's working, test some more. There's a running theme here, isn't there? I know. Okay, cool. So you've done this, and I've been in your shoes, right? You watch this stuff, and you think, oh, this is really cool. I'm so excited. I can't wait to get back to my desk and implement some of this stuff. But you kind of get overwhelmed by the sheer scale of it, and you get back, and the 5 million things that are also on your plate, they're still there. So Does that sound familiar? Here's what I would do if I'm you. So, one, data. So data's your compass. Don't rely on gut feel. Let analytics show you where users drop off, what they care about, and what's actually driving revenue growth. Most brands don't. Most brands tend to use kind of analytics like a drunk uses a lamppost for support rather than illumination. Don't be those people. Next up, research. This is like the heart of everything that we do, which is, is research beats assumptions 99 times out of 100. Your data tells you what users do, but your research explains why they do that. So ask real customers, ask them questions, use surveys, polls, reviews, one-to-one interviews, anything to uncover why they buy and why they bounce. Prioritization unlocks velocity. So your process needs to be on point. So you'll always have more ideas than resources. Start to use frameworks that ruthlessly rank what you're going to test next based on impact, confidence, and effort. And lastly, test everything. Small wins compound. So big ideas often flop. Every insight, good or bad, moves you forward. And remember, it's not about being right, it's about getting better relentlessly.
Great stuff. Thank you, Osh. That was a great presentation. I've seen it a few times. It's interesting every time. So thank you for delivering that so eloquently. It'd be great if you have any questions about what Osh has just talked about. If you could pop them in the chat for us, we'll do our best to get through as many of those as possible. As you will have seen, kind of popping up on the screen, as it is hopefully underneath myself now. We are offering a free audit of your website to help you understand where the quick wins are from a CRO perspective. There's no obligation, no cost to that. It's completely free of charge. So if you would like us to take us up on that offer, just hit that button, the Get My Audit button, and we will arrange that for you. So Jim's already asked for the question. That's great. Thank you, Jim, for starting us off. Do you still use Google Analytics? The changes in it over the past few years have made it personally almost unusable for me. Osh, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Jim. It's look, it's still kind of the Bible for a lot of digital marketers. It's the first thing they look at when they come in the morning. It's the last thing they look at night. But yeah, it has turned into a frustrating beast. Luckily, I've got analytics experts that work with me. If you don't, you either need to upskill or look for external resource. But it's a great starting point. So it's a lot of the times it's just your setup that's been badly implemented. So you want to start be able to measure stuff that really matters. So from a experimentation point of view, you start to look at where the drop-offs are happening, what's happening on your funnel. Start to tag up as many actions as possible. So okay, well, we're seeing a lot of clicks here. We're seeing form fills here. What can we learn from that? And it starts to give you a lot of that kind of quantitative data that you can start to use to pinpoint where you should start to focus your attention from an optimization point of view. It's still something that probably 9 out of 10 clients still use GA4. It's just about getting it right, and if you can't get it right, get someone to help you, because it's going to take a hell of a lot shorter time to get that sorted by having an expert come in than it is to sit there on YouTube for 4 or 5 days.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Osh. The old cynic in me thinks it's almost as though Google don't want you to know where the traffic's coming from. What would they possibly have to gain from that?
I can't imagine.
So another question from Venkat: Are there other ways or platforms to test if we don't have high website traffic in the B2B space? I know B2B businesses do sometimes struggle with this a little bit more than B2C.
Yeah.
What alternatives are there, Osh?
It's a great question, Venkat. I think often the approach that we take is by looking at a user research sprint. So the user research can do a lot of the functionality of A/B testing. So we can have that conversation with users, dive into your analytics, get to that stage where we think, okay, well, here's some of the things that we want to test. And then we can do one-to-one user interviews. We can create mock-ups of different ideas that we want to validate with users. And it's ultimately about doing a lot of that heavy lifting through research. We can still do testing, on low traffic sites, but it's just a lot longer time scale. So you're looking at stuff like cookie led creation starts to come into play. You're looking at a 3 to 5 month testing window. But with user research and essentially user interviews, it's a great way of validating prototypes, getting better decision making skill abilities, and ultimately also learning from your clients. That's how we would look to do it, and we would look to do a kind of 2 to 3 month sprints to set you on that course.
Great, thank you. There's another question from Samuel in a moment. I was going to ask one of my own, if that's okay. One thing that somebody said to me quite recently when I was talking to them about kind of them doing some CRO and some experimentation was they didn't feel comfortable talking openly about experimentation in their business, particularly with their boss. They had the perception that if they say, I want to spend 6 months experimenting, that would make it sound like they don't know what they're doing. How would you respond to that, Osh?
Data's kind of king here. It's people find it really, really difficult to disagree with you when you've got data to back it up, and even better, a recording of your actual users explaining what their problems are and how they're not being met. And this all kind of compounds. So a lot of the time, the way that we'll start off with a client is by looking at running a proof of concept. So we come in, we do that, the kind of ideation piece, we figure out what we think is not working, what's not. Analytics helps. We'll speak to some of the customers and we'll run 2 or 3 tests, either A/B testing or through validating through research, and give a really quantifiable, measurable way of, okay, this is the change we've made, this is why we made it, and this is the return on investment that we've seen as a result of doing that, and using that to validate internal conversations and start to build a business case for why we should invest as a bit, into more optimization and experimentation moving forward.
Great. We're about to run out of time on the streaming platform, actually, I've just noticed. So we've got a couple of questions, one there from Samuel, another one from Jim. Guys, would you mind connecting with either myself or Osh on LinkedIn, and we will answer those questions for you directly one-on-one, because I think they're both really, really good questions. Gabby, would you mind just pulling up that last slide for us, please? So there's another link there just to kind of get your free CRO audit from us, if that would be of interest for you. You do get some really interesting information out of these, so I would absolutely encourage you to take us up on that offer. We'd really like to continue the conversation offline or online, a different platform. So please do kind of get in touch with either myself or Osh on LinkedIn, and we'll kind of have a more detailed conversation with you. But I think just for the for today, we're going to leave it there to kind of be respectful of everybody's time, and hope to connect with you again. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, everyone.